Hi, Eros. Hi, everybody.
And Denise Bushman Pilker suddenly in Quebec, and Stephanie McLean in Toronto. Hello,
Hello.
and Rose L. Williams in Vancouver area in British Columbia. Not actually in Vancouver anymore. Are you in Vancouver now? Yeah,
Sometimes. I will be
sometimes
tomorrow.
tomorrow. And you just took a fantastic trip to Trinidad and had all kinds of pictures and things. And she's on Instagram if you want to see them. It's pretty interesting. And I'm Ross, I'm in Los Angeles. And today we're talking about, well, I feel, weird introducing this. I'm just going to kind of introduce the topic and I guess to sit back. Navigating the art world as a woman. I, I guess I have an advantage just because my voice is deeper.
Does it feel that way though? I wonder.
Well, I know my mom had been arguing with well, arguing is a strong word, but okay, arguing with a tradesman once, and he was really giving her a hard time, and as if she didn't know anything. And she was brilliant, and she could figure out, like an engineer, what was going on with the water heater because we lived in the Northeast in the United States, and he was just like, oh, come on, sweetheart, we're not doing stuff like that. And she said, oh, well, what if I spoke in a deeper voice? And he was like, oh, maybe, she called him on it. So I don't know how does this work where you're just showing up as yourself, as your beautiful artistic self, making your beautiful art? And I mean, is it weird that I just said beautiful twice? Is that part of the problem?
I don't think so, but
I mean, the beautiful art part, but it's very hard for me to wrap my head around how that would be, not how, why that would be a problem. But apparently, history shows that it really is a problem. I mean, how many professional female artists can we really even name? I mean, if I really studied, I could name 10, and without studying, I can almost name one.
Well, are we speaking historically or current day? Because current day, there are
Yeah,
tons of female artists. I know
tons.
way more female artists than male artists, actually.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, but
Yeah.
but
Yes,
the problem
but
being,
still, we're earning a fraction. A fraction. We're showing a fraction of the amount, and at the art markets, we are a very small percentage. Still,
yeah, especially in the like the upper echelons of the art world,
Okay.
there are I've literally heard people say that females cannot paint. I've had this.
oh
I've
yeah,
heard someone say this.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is still a
It's like
thing.
Mary Cassatt was, they were like, "Oh, Mary Cassatt's paintings are fabulous, aren't they lovely?" Degas must have painted them for her.
Hmm.
It's still going on.
Yeah.
It's the same story. I feel personally. I don't
Well,
think it's
for
much
me,
changed.
it's a little double for me because I grew up I'm from an all-female household, and on top of that, I'm from Holland, so I'm from a country where equality, in my opinion, was always good. Like I've never been told that I couldn't do something. I wasn't even aware that this was an issue growing up. Like I literally, until I moved to North America, I was not aware that there was even an issue, and I never really
Mhm.
perceived it that way, and I never really, um, even as an artist, approached my career in that way. I've always approached my career as well. I can do whatever anybody else does, and I don't know. I never really thought about it, but
Probably is the problem, our conception, our internal conception about ourselves. Because you growing up in a country where it wasn't an issue, you wasn't aware that elsewhere it was an issue.
yeah, but I have run into it after, like, being older now and having moved to North America, and especially in Japan, surprisingly, I had people tell me they would come up to me and they would say, "Oh, this is very strong work." And they were sort of taken aback by the fact that it was made by a woman, because they would approach my husband as being the artist, especially in a country like Japan, where females are, there's still like a big gap between men and women, and females are considered to be lesser to a great extent still. Um, so I was very taken aback by that, like the fact that somebody would say that my work was powerful and strong, and therefore they were surprised that it was made by a woman. That was weird to me.
Yeah. I've personally had it shoved down my throat a number of times over my career and my lifetime, especially as an artist. And it started when there was a huge school board wide logo contest in Quebec. It was the English speaking English language school board at the time. So it was pretty big.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there was this big, like, oh, design a logo for all the students of all the different schools in that school board. And Robert Maquina won the first prize, and I got the second prize. But then for the next 36 years, they used my logo for everything. So basically, I won. They liked my logo. My logo was the better logo. It was cheaper to print, and I knew it at the time when I was designing it. And it was used for 36 years. But because he was the boy, he got the first prize. That's where it started for me, and I was only 16. Next time, I was trained as a graphic
Wait,
artist.
Rose, before we go into that next story, I just have to encourage you to use that exact sentence in your CV. Like exactly as you said that, because that is like, I want to like call you up and show your work right away. It's like, it just says so much right there, right? That's amazing.
It was a blow, to be perfectly honest with you, because the graphic design instructor that we both shared, because we were in the same class, even though it was a school board wide competition, the two top winning designs were from the same teacher's class. And Mr. Benchetrit, our teacher, was also shocked that Robert got the prize, because he was saying he had essentially said use hers, right? Mm-hmm. But anyways, that was how it started for me. And then I went through school and I was trained, and I got a job at Ward Apparel, and I prepared artwork back in the day by hand. So how obsolete is that, for silk screen printing and for embroidery. Nice. For a clothing company. And I was working there for a while, and I was asked, we need to get another person in the art department. Can you do the interviews and choose who to hire? And even though I was the most junior artist in the art department, I was like, okay, whatever. Did the interviews, hired some guy who had less experience than I, because he was new and had never done it before. And they said, great, hired him, and then paid him more than me. Right away.
Wow.
Right away. And I was hurt. I was deeply hurt and shocked at the time, but I took it in stride. And then within another year or two, I was in desktop publishing when it was first starting. I was like, things are changing. I gotta get into this desktop publishing thing. That's what it used to be called, folks, when people first started too. In graphic design. And the same thing again. I was hired. I had experience. I had a diploma. And then for the summer, they hired a young man who was still in school and immediately paid him more than me. Again. And at a certain point, I was showing with the Fraser Valley Graphic Guild, which I was one of the founding members, and it was all printmaking. And I saw people at one of the shows going towards and looking at the little thing and making comments, just like Denise just mentioned about the comments that were made, like, that's not bad for a woman. So from that day on, I started signing my work R.L. Williams. Because I really, really was fed up. And I watched and the behavior, it was not so much about the thing on the wall, but more about the artwork.
Wow.
Immediately.
Yeah, my
So
husband and I have talked about this. We have literally talked about, because I do these big shows, and we were like, what would happen if instead of like if we not put my name and he would present himself as being the artist as opposed to me?
I really think you should try just one half a day just to see,
Just
because
to
I
see.
guarantee to you it's going to be different.
It would
I'm
make a
gonna I'm
great
gonna do a small
social
show.
experiment, right?
Yeah,
It
I'm gonna
would.
do a
Yep.
small show here in Quebec in June. I might
That's a good idea.
Just use
See
your
if like the
initial and
sales,
see.
if you get your sales up, in which case just keep bringing them along anyway.
yeah. Well, he's there anyway,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, especially in my field, in textile art, it's remarkable. The men who are using textiles are taken seriously, and their work sells for money. A lot of them train with the female experts in the field, and then just go, and then they start giving classes, and everybody flocks to them.
it's weird.
It's
It's
just
so
the way
weird
it
to me.
works.
But it's
So
so
weird.
weird to me. I just
Well,
cannot.
hey, if you're using textiles, oh, that's a traditional women's, craft. But if you're a guy in textiles, then you must be something special.
Oh, I thought it was really and I don't mean this in any kind of pejorative way. I mean, I really thought it was like queer men would be, mostly
Does it
drawn to.
matter? Do
It
I
doesn't,
care?
but no, it doesn't. But it's just like the fact that
It's
that
still
they'd
same
be.
phenomenon.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm standing behind the guy, whether I want to or not. The other women at the show, somehow it's like, oh, he's shining. He's the shining star. He's standing out because why? Because he's in the field that seems to be dominated by women. I don't know. It's a phenomenon that I see happening still, and I have nothing to say about it except signing my name RL and letting people swallow it. That was one reason when we took our class with Alexis, and she was like, say your story, say your talk, share who you are. And I kept thinking, geez, in the past, I've ended up paying for that because just as a woman.
Wow. So it wasn't even just because your parts of your story are indeed about pain and the
and a
pain
woman's disease.
and a woman's disease, but that
It
it's a.
stigmatizes me instantly. Instantly. That's why I say I'm an artist with a disability, and I don't really go into saying what my disability is unless I'm really asked, because it instantly, many people, I shan't say which gender, put me into a category that I'm irrelevant. Was told by a curator, well, that means that your story is not universal. Well, I don't see how my story can't be universal. I'm sure every man has a female in his life of some kind. Just saying. Even if it's just their mother.
But why would it matter even if the experience is universal? I mean, a man's story is not universal to women.
Well, you just put your
Right.
finger on the mystery for all of us, Ross. Of gender inequality. I mean, I still don't understand what it's all about. And you're right. A man's story is, maybe just relevant to a man, but it seems to always be universal or, quote, important or relevant, especially in the movies. Women's, like, what do they call them? Chick flicks, right? Women's stories are often relegated in movies into the genre where it's a chick flick. And just that term, doesn't that sort of like it's not as serious, right?
Right. Yeah.
I do think that's changing though.
And they're usually the rom-coms, right? The rom-coms, the romantic comedies are usually chick flicks.
Even just movies that, deal with the female subject matter are sometimes just,
Right.
chick flicks, which should not necessarily be. A woman's coming of age story is just as relevant as a man's coming of age story.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So that's how I've experienced it on a personal level. I just try to kind of put blinders on and pretend it's not happening. Otherwise, it would piss me off all the time.
Mm.
Mm.
How about you, Lara?
So
To me, the first time that I thought about it, it was when I started with my exhibition in Barcelona, when a friend of mine suggested me to use a male name.
Wow.
She was a curator, and she said to me, maybe would be worth if you use like a name that can be masculine.
Like Larry?
I didn't do it, and I wasn't interested. Also because probably I was naive, or maybe I was more keen to know, because I am also a female. I'm a woman, so. And yeah, I think that it's related to our the culture where we live and our conception, and probably also the how the life of a woman is uh, has to be developed.
Developed. That's okay.
I mean, I think that this problem is not only in this field. Is in every field the problem of how the concept of the woman, because the woman is like the uh, housewife who take care of the kids, or has to some rule. And also, if the woman doesn't want to have kids, doesn't what will have some problem. I remember that when I was working for another in another field, I was a travel agent, and when I said to my boss that I was getting married, he looked at me and saw, and you will have kids, and I say, probably. I said at the time, and in that
Get your crystal ball out.
Oh, Lara's
Did Lara
frozen.
freeze?
Yeah.
freeze. Uh-oh. Yeah.
You
Okay.
froze. Your face froze. They're like, oh.
Now
you're back.
You're back.
was talking. And for this reason, now you know that I'm writing a murder mystery in my
Cool.
other profession, and the
Oh, weird. Modern technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we'll never know who done it. Lara,
at least
come
you're pretty, Lara.
back.
Lara, come back.
I mean, Lara, we can't hear you.
Everybody.
We can see you. You're like this.
Now,
The freeze frame.
While we're waiting for Laura to come back, Stephanie, what have your encounters been? And you've been a professional visual person for a long time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. You know, it wasn't so much the hiring process, but I would say because I'm a sensitive person, I think a lot less sensitive than I used to be. I used to be everything used to just freak me out, and I was always very empathetic toward everybody else. But I think because of that, and I think because women, and I'm speaking very generally here, but women tend to be maybe a little bit more so. I felt that I was maybe not taken as seriously as my male counterparts were in my various jobs. But there's something to be said for female sensitivity and intuition, I think, and I think it can measure up just as well as in terms of the office dynamic. I think it's important to have that. But that was my experience. That maybe sometimes I just wasn't taken as seriously as men. Ross, you have
Serious.
something to say about that?
No, so, seeing somebody go by, I didn't hope they didn't have a jackhammer. See,
Oh,
when you say Stephanie, do you mean like conceptually taken seriously, or
yeah,
like
yeah.
really personally?
Conceptually, personally, professionally, all of those things.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's okay. I don't really care anymore, but at the time I realized that.
Okay, this is really just I'm gobsmacked by all of this. I mean, okay, first of all, I recognize that even some of my, I've got to clean up my thinking. Some of my language hasn't been like I can just tell, like I'm, I've got like blind spots. Denise, you're traveling around the world to see these different cultures, and not really just see, to be immersed in these different cultures, to live in these cultures has given you, and from your personal upbringing has given you such a perspective all across the board. Have you encountered any other place that you've lived that was as um, equitable? Is that the right word? As Netherlands?
No, I don't think so. And I was surprised actually how unequitable America and Canada I found America and Canada to be,
Hmm.
and not just in terms of male versus female, but also in terms of racism. Even though I've now found out that there's actually a lot more racism in my own country than I initially had thought there was.
Hmm.
But I come from a country that is generally considered to be very open and like open to other cultures. Like we are like in our country, like if you go to the government there, you can literally get a form in almost any language that you can imagine. There's forms for people in Chinese, Arabic, English, French, German, whatever. And if there's not a form, there's a translator, and
Right.
that is definitely not the case where I am living now.
One thing that no, especially not Quebec. That's right, especially not Quebec.
No,
But Holland is really a melting pot of so many different ethnicities and nationalities.
it
So I can
is.
see why it would want to cater to its population in that way.
Yeah.
Whereas Quebec, even though it is also a very big melting pot, excuse me, there's so many politics surrounding the language there, right? The preservation of
Opposite.
French. Yeah.
And it has also something to do with the fact that, first of all, Holland is very, very tiny. I always tell people like I come from a very tiny country, and we are surrounded by like four other countries, and we want to make sure that we can communicate with everybody so we can be their friends because we're tiny,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah.
And we are also a
Strategic.
country
Yeah.
that is a lot of like from like history. We are a merchant country, so we like
Right.
trade. We're a trade country. We don't in
Yeah.
Holland we don't make anything. We just trade.
Trade. Yeah.
So we have learned to communicate with everybody. So
We make wooden shoes.
yeah, and flower bulbs, which we stole from the Turkish people, I think.
Flower bulbs.
And Phillips.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's so I come from a very open country and a very like in Holland we have this saying like just be normal because normal is weird enough, and yeah, and
I'm all about
we
that.
literally don't give a shit about what anybody else thinks. We'll just say whatever comes to mind. We are not very
You're very direct.
yeah, very direct. So we just think or say whatever comes to mind immediately. We don't think about how that might reflect on anybody else. We just say it because whatever, who gives a shit, you know? Which also means that we're not as easily offended by things, which means that at least in my personal experience, I'm not as like, you can basically say anything to me, and it you have to you have to try really, really, really hard for me to be offended by something that you say to me. So I might not even pick up on like a large part of the things that might not be meant in the way people mean them, just because I'm like, whatever.
If I may though, there is a certain amount of respect that you, as a person and a Dutch person, commands. For example, if you are being addressed in an email and someone doesn't say your name, it's like, excuse me, and that's because you have respect for other people. So that's not really the same thing as, calling you a name or anything like that. But there is still that amount of respect that you
Yeah,
expect and that you give out.
of course. Yeah. No, it's not that we are rude just for the sake of being
No,
rude. It's just a
no,
cultural
no.
thing that, and I found this especially here in Canada. We are so careful not to offend anybody and to apologize, and that's something that I've had to learn to deal with, because like, and still I sometimes I'm just too direct for people to
Direct. Yeah.
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 So it's a
Hey,
cultural
Laura.
thing.
Sorry for interrupting, Denise. Laura's back. Hi, Laura. You're not frozen
Hi.
anymore, are you? Okay. And so
Were you cold? You were freezing all the time.
so you were telling us about your murder mystery and how that was going to relate, and then also I'd like to find out, Denise's experience in Northern Europe has a certain quality to it, and you've lived in these Latin countries, which is, I can only imagine, has a different quality of uh, gender allocation or something like that. So please continue. Murder mystery first.
This is yeah, because I lived also for 2 years in UAE, and yeah, it's better if I don't talk.
We'll say something about that, because that's
That is, yeah.
so
Yeah.
different, and also that's like the
so
most
different,
broad-minded place in the Arab world,
Sorry?
and that's also the most broad-minded place in the Arab world, isn't it?
United Arab Emirates is?
Emirates. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where
Like the
people
most
go.
open-minded?
Well, the laws are more lax.
Yeah, I
for
can
certain-
say it. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it could be open. You can find everything and open or closed. To be honest, I think that their part of the behavior is part of the culture. So I don't like to criticize something that I don't probably understand, because living there, I have friends that were with or cover up, and they say that it's their own choice. I think that it's a choice partially guided by, not partially guided by the culture and the history. Religion is very
So men.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in some way, it's a country where you expect to find this. I'm more I think it's more outrageous when you find it in a country that's said to be equal, that treat equally women, and is not. I think in some way it's worse. But it's worse. I don't know if it's worse, because there's many things in some countries that I hate. But I think it's like a kind of hypocrisy for a country that say that there is equality in gender equality, that actually is not, because for the law is right, because sometimes I had also some discussion with my kids, because they say, but it's not by law, it's not possible to have different salary for women and men, but it actually is. Also, they find a way.
Oh yeah.
Because I don't know if you could hear me before when I was freezed. I'm sorry,
No.
but my dog is trying to having my
Wants your attention.
I cannot say. So, but when I was working in Italy for a travel agent, as a travel agent, it happened to me the same that happened to Rose. That there was my person who worked with me that was men were maybe I was advanced, but my salary was less than them. It doesn't matter how much you work, and the thing that I understand, it was because that they imagine the woman as a painter, for example. For many years, I was considered. It was considered for by like also my husband, that for me was like a hobby, not something real. And I think also what you said before, Stephanie, that there are a lot of women that paint. Probably there are more women than men that are painter, but it depends where they can arrive, at what which stair
Level.
of the step of the stair they can arrive.
Yeah.
Maybe there are a lot of women there, but more men on the
At
top.
the top.
Yeah.
And I think it's related also to the mecenate who maybe found more men than, I don't know, to be honest. It's a fact that it is like this. I don't know what we can do to change it.
Well, even just pointing it out, speaking about it is, part of the change, because the more quiet we are and just swallow it as, oh, okay, that's just something we have to put up with. I mean, that's what I've been doing my whole life. Do you think I spoke up when he was promoted above me? No, I needed my job. I didn't say a damn thing. I kept quiet because I knew what the consequences were pretty serious. If I pissed people off or I tipped the little, the apple cart. But at this point in my life, I don't give a shit. And I don't want things to have to be the same for my niece. And I really don't think that it's fair that my nieces have to still beat their heads against the same wall. And personally, on a personal level, my niece is still having to fight for equal medical treatment that I did. And that shouldn't be 30 years later. That really shouldn't be. And it is gender based, 1000% gender based. And it just, whether it's in the art world or in the medical treatment or whatever realm, I think the fact that we speak up and we say something is the only thing that's going to make any change. It's like when the Me Too movement happened, right? Like, why should an actress have to navigate a career so differently than an actor?
That's a really good comparison. That's a really good, yeah.
It's not supposed to be that way this far into our development as human beings. We know enough. We know too much. We know that women and men have their different strengths and weaknesses, but it doesn't mean that it makes us unequal.
Right. Wow. What a
For Ross, how do you feel? How do you feel talking about all of this?
I have so many ideas and feelings going on in so many realms, and I can't go there right now, but I definitely want to talk with some of you after, because this is really impactful. This was a very, very important conversation for me to sit in on. I mean, I hope
Right.
that the people out there in who are listening to our little broadcast here. Hi,
Oh.
Cheryl. Boy, did
Hi,
you miss a
Cheryl.
conversation? Oh my gosh! Welcome. Hi.
You're on mute, Cheryl.
You're muted.
There she is.
Hi
Hi.
there, Cheryl. You're in
Oh.
Australia still, right?
We think so.
Did you
I think
get my
so.
wakey eggs and bakey message?
No, because I deliberately turn off all my notifications because
Oh,
what
yeah.
happens is at night when
Oh,
I'm trying to sleep, you're all talking from about 12:30 on.
Yeah.
So it was actually 4:30, not 5:30. I was thinking last night, I really should check that.
Oopsie doopsie.
Well, welcome.
Welcome.
well.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Well, we're
Yeah.
just going to go into the part of our program where we're going to talk about the different sizes that we're working on. So we're working on these larger pieces now. And before we were working on these really quite small pieces, the previous size was what, like a
5
by
5
7.
5 by 7, and the larger ones are
18 by 24.
18 by 24. So I just go by relative size. It's like it's around 20 something by something. And there's definitely, I'm seeing a difference in how to both approach them and how confidently I can go into it. Are you all seeing that too in your approaches?
Absolutely.
What are you seeing, Stephanie? Absolutely.
The freedom.
Freedom.
Yeah, it just feels more free. It just feels I don't really like painting detail. Like I'm just not that kind of painter.
Not a
So I like
miniaturist.
having, pardon me?
Not a miniaturist.
No, I'm not. So I like having the bigger canvas, the bigger panel to stroke to it's just you know what I mean. It's just more freeing. I feel more liberated painting that way. And also I get to see everyone else's work, and somehow it just speaks to me more than it did on the smaller paintings. Yeah, it's just I find it more fun.
I find it also
What
a
do you
little
mean
bit more intimidating.
Yeah, how so?
Yeah, actually, yeah, I would agree.
Because you
What's
have much more
intimidating about it?
influence on these larger panels. And I also feel that somehow and I think I've only had 3 of them so far, that the starts have been a little bit more tentative, I would say, where they're more open-ended when I receive them. So they're not as structured, and I don't have as much of a direction as the smaller pieces had, which means that my layer is potentially having more of an influence on the direction that the piece is going. Or at least that's what it feels like.
I can see that. Cheryl, you're used to working large a lot. You often work very large. So how was it working very small before compared to working large?
It's still the same amount of brush strokes, just that you have a smaller brush. I don't know.
This is a smaller brush.
That's fair.
I love it. Yeah.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Well, you handle a big brush one would handle a big brush differently than a small brush, right? And the size of the brush needs to be kind of proportionate to the to the size of the canvas or something.
Yeah,
right?
and you can't use your shoulder with a small painting.
Yeah.
You use your fingers.
Oh yeah.
You do use your fingertips, whereas a big painting you can use your shoulder.
Yeah, I remember your circles. You say you use your shoulder.
Yeah, you do use your shoulder. You don't use your little fingers, whereas
Your
with a little
knuckles.
painting,
Don't
you
use
use
your
your little fingers.
So for Cheryl, Denise, and Stephanie, it's more freedom at the end, more freedom to express.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably also for me, it's more freedom. I'm not sure because I've just worked, about all 3. Yeah, but probably it's a different perspective. I don't feel much difference because it's more of the intention that are important than the size of the canvas.
So, Laura, you're not finding that that the intention, because folks, we put an intention, we write down the intention before we work on them, and so you're not finding that the intention is influenced by the size because you've got that much more
No,
more square inches to do.
for me, I haven't find so different the intention for now, because the intention is what you want to express. So if you want to express in a small size or a bigger size, let's say I prefer to paint a bigger size on my own, but I don't find a difference in it's my dog that trying to and but I don't find different, because the most important thing is to find to check the intention and to follow the intention. It's more than the size of the canvas.
Right.
Rose, how about you? What are you seeing in your size change?
I feel that there's a difference in, perhaps for me, especially in terms of medium possibilities, because in the small pieces there wasn't a lot of scope for me to explore my unique botanical approach as much. But with the larger ones, there's a little bit more space in terms of being able to layer media the way that I do in my own paintings without overwhelming the whole piece if I had done that on the 5x7s. So, for example, when I did my intervention on the piece that Lara started, I was able to really go for the whole my medium. Whereas a lot of the other ones I stuck with painting, because if I had done that, it would have obscured too much. So the size is just, in terms, for me, it's more compositional and elements of design possibilities in that larger space.
Right.
Oh gosh,
it's not really about freedom, or like for Lara, it's the same for me. It's the intention is what is driving the whole my layer. And it was the same on the 5x7, that I didn't have scope for my experimental media as much. So it's a bit more fun to be able to sit and look at the larger pieces and kind of allow all of my collage pieces or the leaves or the dye to kind of come into the process a little bit more.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I never really thought of that before, that how different it must have been for you to work on those small pieces, just by nature of the size of the material that you work with. You're working with, like, yours is all in real time, so to speak.
Yeah. If you have a leaf, right, it's like it's the size of the leaf. I'm not conceptually making it smaller to fit. It's just the size of the leaf, right? That's why, like the first one, I was hammering heather, and I was doing hapazomi heather, because heather is a very small flower, and I didn't really have, I didn't have the scope to do a big pink dogwood or something, because it would have taken over the whole piece. So yeah, it's fun. I'm enjoying this 18x24 journey of experimentation you guys have launched me on.
Me too.
Yay. This latest series is Layers of Discovery. So just all kinds of things that are coming through, and we'll be opening things in the near future, revealing what we've all worked on. I think we've probably reached our time limit here. We've got to go. I'm sure we all have busy days ahead of us. Well, I hope you all have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thanks for
watching.
Bye.